Good morning. The last part of the second unit is hook joint. So this hook joint we consider in three stages. In the first stage, that is today's lecture, I will explain as a whole nutshell of hook joint application, okay, without any analysis part. I will describe like a story who can understand very easily without much mathematical knowledge. And the next lecture I will take entire analysis part on the hook joint. That is the second lecture or seventh lecture. This is the sixth lecture. And finally in the eighth lecture we will solve the problems based upon the hook joint. Okay. So in the second chapter, in general, the problems will be asked on hook joint only. And at the same time, you can expect here theory as well as analysis as well as problems. All the three categories of the questions can be expected from this chapter. So today's lecture, I will discuss about what is hook joint, where we use hook joint, and how it can be useful in an automobile, and what way it is used, and why single hook joint is not used, why double hook joint is preferred. Without any analysis, I will explain today's lecture. And the next lecture, I will focus on the mathematical analysis of the hook joint, and whatever today's lecture I describe the phenomena that will be proved by the equation mode. And finally, in the last lecture, that is the lecture number 8, we will apply the equations what we derived in the 7th lecture in the problems part. Okay. So this hook joint is also called as universal coupling. So hook joint is also called as universal coupling. Where we use this hook joint, how this joint works, and what is this hook joint advantage over the other joints. Okay. The name itself, joint, whatever the name it is, either hook joint or whatever it may be, or coupling. Couple connects, joint connects. That means two members, two machine elements, when they are connected by means of some mode, that is called joint or coupling. Joint or coupling. So in machine design, that is in DMM1 course, you have already finished like rigid couplings and flexible couplings. So under the category of flexible couplings, you might have studied this universal coupling or this hook joint, and one more coupling is Oldham coupling. That is in the first chapter in a double slider crank chain mechanism, one of the inversion which we have already discussed, that is Oldham's coupling. Oldham's coupling. These two couplings, Oldham's coupling and universal couplings, they comes under flexible couplings. Flexible couplings. What is this flexibility? The flexibility are in two ways. One is angular flexibility and another one is axial flexibility. So axial flexibility is obtained by your Oldham coupling. So the Oldham coupling will take care about axial flexibility. Axial flexibility. Then what about angular flexibility that is obtained in the hook joint? Hook joint. So let us see a practical case where we require such a angular flexibility, isn't it? So you can see here there is an animation shown. There is an animation shown. Here this is the input shaft and this is the output shaft. These two are not in the same axis. There is a axial inclination is there between the input and output. Okay, so this is, I think many of you might have observed such an operation when you stand behind a four-wheeler where a long shaft is transmitting power from the gearbox to differential. I hope majority of you might have seen in an automobile where there is an engine, of course followed by gearbox, and there will be a differential. This gearbox is connected by this differential by means of a shaft called propeller shaft. A long shaft with around 1.5 meter to 2 meters long. Slant one like this. A slant one which is coupled to the differential. What is the differential? When you stand behind a lorry or a bus, you see between the rear wheels a big device like a pot. Here there is one wheel and here there is another wheel. This part which is like a pot which is called a differential. What is the objective of this differential and how it works? All these things we'll discuss in a chapter, gear trains. So at time being, you forget about what is this differential. A differential is a device which transmits power to rear wheels from the gearbox. That is enough for you. So this gearbox is and differential is connected by a shaft which is a propeller shaft. Okay. Suppose if the vehicle is going on a straight path, there is no problem. The propeller shaft will be simply revolving without much inclination changes. But whereas if the vehicle is moving on a road where there is an unevenness in the road, so the tires will fall or tires will rise and all these things will happen, then the entire rear axle will be shifting up and down because the entire thing differential is moving up and down. When it is moving up and down, then this propeller shaft will also takes an angular orientation change. Suppose if you don't have the flexibility of this angular change, then the damage will take place to this bar because of constrained motion of this differential. For that, I need some angular position can be shifted as per my requirement of tires moving up and down, isn't it? That is what I can show you here. So this hook joint is basically used to connect two shafts whose axes are not non-parallel but intersecting. That is what you can see. This is input shaft and this is output shaft. There is some angle. They are not parallel. Input shaft and output shaft is not parallel and they are intersecting. In that case, we use this joint called hook joint or universal coupling. Okay, both the shafts, that means input shaft and output shaft, that is the driving and driven, are made like a forks. You can see here in this example. So here, this end of the shaft is made like a fork, a tuning fork. You can see this is like a C-clamp. And here you can see this is made a hollow, and the shaft will come here. They come like here they come. Okay, so the shaft ends are made like a tuning force. That is, the driving and driven shaft are make their ends. And each fork is provided with bearings, two bearings for the respective arms. That means here there will be a bearing and here there will be a bearing. Similar, here there is a bearing and bottom there will be a bearing. So the two ends are made with the two forks, and the two forks are connected by like a cross and placing two bearings. So the cross has two mutually perpendicular arms. That is what you can see. Two arms, vertical arm and horizontal arm, isn't it? And they intersects between the two shafts. The driven shaft has been shown in the inclination with an alpha with the driving shaft. That is what I have written. So in the next diagram, I will show that angle. So the driver shaft and driven shaft is with an angle alpha. So that you can look at in the next diagram. Yeah. The same thing which I have explained there, the animation what you have seen, you can observe here. The driving shaft and the driven shaft. In the earlier, I have shown here, this is made a fork and here you have inserted a shaft. Whereas here in this diagram, it itself is made like a solid bar. Without keeping this inserting here you can observe the driving shaft end is made like a C-clamp and the driven shaft is made like a C-clamp. This is nothing but two spanners. You can imagine there is a spanner with a hand and there is another spanner like this. Spanner A and spanner B. You keep them mutually perpendicular like this. This is spanner A and this is spanner B. Imagine like this, spanner A and spanner B. If I am able to connect these two spanners by means of a yoke or a cross, that is what you can see. A cross. This is the cross. Which connects these two ends, two forks, isn't it? And this is the driving shaft and this is the driven shaft, and there is an angle between the driving shaft axis and driven shaft axis is alpha. This is the angle between the driving shaft and driven shaft. Okay. Now, what is my objective? My objective is the same thing once again shown by taking the cross into simple actual working model, making them center like a spear and projecting two cylinder pins top and bottom to accommodate bearings. So I can put a bearing, I can put a bearing, I can put a bearing, and I can put a bearing. So the driving shaft and driven shaft is making with an angle of alpha. So the driving shaft with this axis input and the driven shaft with some angle which is nothing but alpha, isn't it? What is my objective? When this shaft rotates one rotation, this shaft also should rotate one rotation, isn't it? So without losing any power, the power should be transmitted from the input shaft to the output shaft. Of course, that can be done by using this mechanism, but in this process, what happens, let us see. So the hook joint transmits the power from gearbox to the rear axle. This is already I have explained. So power which develops in engine will be transmitted to the rear axle through differential. So that connects gearbox to the rear axle. So the driving shaft, that is the input shaft of the driving shaft rotates with uniform angular speed, whereas the driven shaft rotates at continuously varying speed. This is very important point in the hook joint. What is it? My objective is transmit the power from the driving shaft to the driven shaft. So the driving shaft is revolving with a constant or uniform angular speed. But whereas the driven shaft is not revolving with uniform angular speed, it varies its angular speed from position to position. But one thing you keep in mind, both input shaft and output shaft will be completed one rotation with the same time. Then you get a doubt, so how it is possible, isn't it? So I will explain by a simple example by taking into the consideration in a small classroom. Let us say you are asked to move from this position to this position, A to B. Okay? So there are two people named as like X and Y. So the X started here and reached to the point B in say 10 minutes. Whereas Y also finished this distance in 10 minutes. So I asked to run between distance A to B, whatever the distance it is, to two people X and Y. X has finished this task in 10 minutes, Y is also finished the same task in 10 minutes. Isn't it? That means both of them have started and ended the activity at the same time. But whereas X has traveled this distance with uniform speed, say 5 kmph, 5 kilometers per hour, isn't it? But whereas Y has traveled with a non-uniform speed, that means he traveled sometime like 3 kmph, sometime like 8 kmph, sometime like 6 kmph. You can see here A has traveled the entire distance with the same speed, and whereas B has traveled this with 3 different speeds or 4 different speeds or a continuously different speeds, isn't it? Actually it is not 3 or 4, it is a continuously varying speeds, isn't it? But A has also completed the task in 10 minutes and B also has completed in 10 minutes, isn't it? So why it is happened? Because here the speed is 5 kmph, whereas here the speed at different times 3, 8, 6. That means sometimes less than A speed, sometimes more than A speed, isn't it? But the task is completed, both of them are same, isn't it? Okay, or I can give another easy example Suppose I asked two people to do some work within 8 hours. Within 8 hours, your job. So, A has finished in 8 hours by doing every hour with the same speed. Whereas the B has completed the task in 8 hours by sleeping 1 hour and 1 hour working very hard, 1 hour working very lazy, like that. But both of them have completed the same task in the same time. But the difference is one has moved with a uniform velocity and other one will have traveled his journey with different velocities. That is what you can observe here in a polar diagram. So you can observe here two circles, two curves are shown. One is circle and the other one is an ellipse. So the circle is represented by input shaft rotation, and whereas the ellipse one is represented the output shaft. Look at here. So if I treat this is one cycle, and if I treat these distances or velocities, angular velocities, because I have represented omega, angular velocities, the input at any time, so that is for one rotation 360 degrees, so theta input say 30 degrees, like 90 degrees, like 150 degrees, so on, or like 240, 270, like 300, like 0. 0 means 360, 0, starting like 30, 90, 150, 180, 200, 270, like 300, 360. So irrespective of at any angle, the same velocity is maintained. That is why you got a circle. Radius is fixed. And what about the output shaft? I will select another color because the yellow color is not that much visible. Better you can use this color, or that is also matching. Green is okay. So here you can see at 0 degree this will have this much angular velocity. Okay, at 90 degrees this will have this angular velocity. If I take the input shaft angular velocity as omega 1, when theta is 0, the output shaft omega 2 is greater than omega 1. The output shaft is rotating more velocity than the input shaft. And whereas at 90 degrees, omega 2 is less than omega 1. You can observe. Okay. So there is a continuous variation from maximum to minimum, minimum to maximum, then maxima to minima, minima to maxima. In this process, there is at one location where the input shaft and output shaft will rotate with the same speed, that is this point. This is another point. Sorry. These four instances will give you at 4 points. Both input shaft and output shaft will rotate at same velocity. Okay, so a complete revolution of either shaft will cause the other shaft rotate through the complete revolution in the same time. That is what I explained. A also finish in 10 minutes, B also finish in 10 minutes. Okay, but with varying angular speed. That is what you can observe in this diagram. So input shaft is A, output shaft is B. The input shaft is with the same angular speed from beginning to the end of the cycle, whereas the output shaft is varying maxima to minima, minima to maxima, maxima to minima, minima to maxima. So in this process, there are 4 situations or 4 positions that input shaft and output shaft will have the same speed. So in the next lecture, we will discuss mathematically what is the angle where input shaft and output shaft will have constant speed, isn't it? So by using single hook joint, there is a variation of output shaft angular velocity within the cycle, which is not recommended in precise applications, isn't it? You may say that, sir, what is wrong? Both are finishing in the same time, 10 minutes and 10 minutes. But there are certain cases where you have to maintain constant angular velocity over a cycle. In that case, this will not suit. Then what to do? So for that, a double hook joint is used. A double hook joint is used. That means this is the input shaft. Okay, output shaft is not connected directly by hook joint. You will have like so there will be like a shaft connected by hook joint 1, connected by another hook joint 2, then input and output. An intermittent shaft is used. So input output is connected by an intermittent shaft with 2 hook joints, hook joint 1 and hook joint 2. That is called a double hook joint. So when you use a double hook joint, they are aligned in a phase such a way that the other end will be coming in the other way. Like here I got an ellipse like this, no? In the other case I get an ellipse like this. So there is one horizontal ellipse and one vertical ellipse, isn't it? Where you get minima, where you get the same location maxima. So the resultant is at any location you get the same radius. That means whatever the input angular velocity, you get the same output angular velocity. That is taken care by double hook joint. So in intermittent shaft the variation will be there, but whereas at the output shaft there is no variation, isn't it? So that is what a double hook joint is used. So the mathematics part, analytical part I have not discussed. I have only explained the phenomena what is happening in a hook joint of single hook joint, what is happening in the double hook joint, why we have to go for a double hook joint, and where at what location you get the input shaft and output shaft same angle, same angular velocity. This is all I have explained without any mathematical proof. So the mathematical proof needs a complete lecture, which needs a good knowledge about your projections of lines and its orientations and some trigonometry function, simple applications. That we will see in the next lecture, where we can find out the necessary angles and we will find out the corresponding positions. Okay, with those data which we obtain, we will solve the problems. One complete lecture, we put the problems part, that is the end of the lecture 8. Okay, so with this we will close the hook joint, or called universal coupling, isn't it? So the summary is like this: a hook joint is used to provide angular flexibility, and a single hook joint will not be used in majority of the cases, because the output shaft is not maintaining uniform angular velocity within the cycle. To overcome this, we would like to use a double hook joint. So both the ends of the intermittent shaft, one hook joint is connected like this. So if you now, when you go outside, you watch in a four-wheeler, a lorry or a bus, and you can observe there is a long tube which is a propeller shaft, is connected by one hook joint on the left and right side of it. From there you will have your gearbox shaft, input shaft, and your differential shaft, that is the rear end connection. Okay, with this we'll close the theory part of hook joint. I will discuss in another lecture the analysis part of hook joint. Okay, thank you.